The beginnings of fashion. A needle with an eye from 40,000 years ago. Years. 40,000 years ago, our ancestors living in Siberia began using a needle with an eye to decorate their clothing. This technological innovation heralded a significant change. Manufactured clothing no longer serves only a protective function, it begins to be an expression of identity. The oldest known needles with eyes date back 40,000 years old and were found in Denisova cave in Siberia. Their invention marked the beginnings of fashion, a new era in the production of sophisticated clothing that is an expression of the owner's identity, argue scientists from the University of Sydney in a publication published in the journal Science Advances. In 2010, a publication appeared describing bone fragments found several years earlier in Denisova cave in Siberia. It turned out that they represented a new, previously unknown group of the Homo genus. Representatives of this group were called Denisovans, after the place where their remains were first discovered. Neanderthal remains and hundreds of artifacts were also found in the cave. Among them was an inconspicuous needle. Our ancestors date back 320,000 years. Years ago, they hunted cave bears to obtain their skins, which served as clothing. In turn, artifacts found in one of the caves in Morocco suggest that people were making clothes as early as 120,000 years ago. Still other findings indicate that our ancestors have been at least 70,000 years ago. For years they used bone awls to make clothes. The icing on the cake among archaeological discoveries related to clothing production is the discovery of a 40,000-year-old years of a needle with an eye. Eyed needle tools are an important event in prehistory because they document the transition of the function of clothing from utilitarian to social, says Dr. Ian Gilligan from the University of Sydney. Why do we wear clothes? We assume this is part of being human, but when we look at different cultures, we realize that humans existed and functioned perfectly well in society without clothes. I'm intrigued by the shift from the physical necessity of wearing clothes in some environments to the social necessity in all environments, he adds. Eyed needles are more difficult to make compared to bone awls. Awls made of animal bones sharpened to a certain point were quite sufficient to create fitted clothes. Eyed needles are modified awls with a perforated hole, eye, to make sewing easier. This technological innovation allowed for the production of more complex, layered clothes, as well as the decoration of clothes by sewing on beads, shells, or other small decorative elements. Adding layers to improve insulation is based on the basic principle of trapping air close to the surface of the skin to reduce the rate of heat loss. The connection between eyelet needles and the physiological need for more thermally effective and well-fitting clothing is obvious, the study authors write. We know that until the last glacial cycle, clothing was used only temporarily. The classic tools we associate with clothing production are leather scrapers. They appear and disappear during different phases of the last ice ages, explains Dr. Gilligan. According to the authors of the publication, environmental conditions during the ice ages forced our ancestors to wear some form of thermal insulation. This, in turn, made traditional forms of body decoration, such as ochre paintings, invisible and covered by clothing. In their opinion, this is the reason for decorating clothes. Scientists suggest that eyelet needles may have allowed our ancestors to create more sophisticated clothing, allowing them to express themselves and communicate through fashion, since the body was covered. Therefore, the appearance of needles with an eye is particularly important. Signals the use of clothing as decoration. Eyed needles were particularly useful for the very precise sewing that was required to decorate clothing, points out Dr. Gilligan. According to the authors of the publication, clothing has evolved to serve not only the practical need for protection against cold, but also a social, aesthetic function for individual and cultural identity. The wearing of clothing made it possible to live in places with colder climates. In addition, it united the community through the same style of clothing or similar decorations.